There we go. Hello. Hello. I would love it if you would take a moment to introduce yourself and just give us your name and where you're from. That would be a lot of fun. It's just fun to see how international and widespread these little webinars can go, and that is always good. And I like to know who I'm spending time with as well. And I like to know that you are actually hearing me and that things are working well. Just double checking my microphone. Yes, it looks like we are golden and you've got video. So let's just do a tech check here just to make sure things are working right. Susan, can you just let me know in the chat box if you can hear me? I know you can see me, so if you just let me know if you can hear me, that would be great. And while you are doing that, we're giving everybody just another minute or two to jump on with us. And yeah, excited to be doing this evening. Yay! And here we've got Susan from Pennsylvania, and you can hear me. That is wonderful. Thank you for doing that. And welcome, everyone. We are glad to have you with us today. I am going to invite you to turn off all your distractions, which means I'm going to turn mine off. Some of you have been with me before, and you know that my mom typically likes to call when I'm teaching. And so it makes it most interesting because of course I can't pick up if I'm teaching and I have to swipe it off and, and run. And I call her back later, of course, but there are no interruptions now because I am on airplane mode, and I hope you are as well. If you possibly can be, if you're watching this on your phone, then don't put your phone in airplane mode. Just saying. Are you ready to go? Let's start with just a little bit of an introduction here tonight. This is me and my husband. This is a year ago this past Christmas. And it's easy for me to mark that because this little munchkin runs. Oh my goodness, he is so fast. He's 18 months old now. 7 of these lovely people are our children. 5 of them are my children from another mother, also known as my children's spouses, and 8 of them are our lovely grandchildren. Here I am. This was our Christmas dinner this year. It was, we don't get dressed up. We had so much fun that day. I didn't get dressed up. I don't even think I put makeup on that day. I am the president and founder of Cobblestone Health Limited and of Iridology Education. I grew my business as a health coach while we were having our 7 children. And there was a lot of times when I actually had a nursing baby either with me in my clinic room, or I would be teaching a live class and I would have a nursing baby with me in that live class. I got really good at breastfeeding, very inconspicuously, and really good at changing diapers while I kept teaching. Didn't miss a beat, just kept going. Autopilot, right? And that was a lot of fun. Now, of course, we do most of our teaching online because of all of the different things that are going on in the world and because it gives us a bigger reach, and that's a lot of fun as well. I really show you this, show you this picture primarily because you can see that, our oldest son right back here, love him to pieces. He's actually turning 40 this year, which means that my husband and I are both in that position of needing to care for elderly parents. So we're very, very busy. And I know that most people are very busy right now. And that is one of the biggest excuses that a lot of people have. And excuses might sound harsh for not moving forward in their business, for not taking classes, for not really pushing and getting their business to grow, is because they say they're busy. And I'm not disputing that anyone is busy. My dad used to say you can make time for the things that are important for you. And he was absolutely right about that. I have studied many things over the years. I am a master herbalist, a certified herbalist, a natural nutrition clinical practitioner. I've got nutrition training credentials through a couple of different organizations. I'm a certified iridologist from a couple of different organizations. I am a comprehensive certified iridology instructor with the International Iridology Practitioners Association. I've also studied aromatherapy and flower essences and emotional freedom technique and VitaFlex and biokinesiology. So I've got a lot of stuff under my belt, and I gathered all of that while we were having this massive family. I want you to know as well as we're doing this, that I get it that we are all over the world. And each one of us works under different regulations and rules that are governed by either your city or your state or province or county or your country. And that can make it really difficult for us to practice iridology or to practice what we do, whether it's nutrition or herbology or whatever we do, because of the legal limits that we are subjected to. But what I can tell you is this, because iridology is not a diagnostic tool, it's an assessment tool. We're not naming diseases, we're not using iridology to name cures. We are using it to gather deeper understanding about our clients. I have found, as have all of my grads that have done my program, that iridology helps us to stay within our scope of practice very nicely and very safely. So as we look at iridology, I've had a lot of people tell me why they wanted to learn iridology. And here are some of the reasons, not necessarily in any particular order. Number one is they don't feel really confident when they're face to face with their clients. So they struggle to come up with the recommendations on the spot. Number two is they give time away. Because they don't feel confident, they don't feel like they can charge, they get cornered into doing freebies, or they spend 2 or 3 or 4 hours of their own time creating protocols for clients, and the practitioners aren't getting paid for that time. Sometimes they are learning iridology because they want to learn a way to help their clients to want to keep coming back. So often in the holistic health world, our clients come in for 1 or 2 sessions. They get what they think is the most important little piece, and then they disappear and we don't see them again. And it's really not going to work, because you and I know that there's always more than one little piece, right? And so they think they've got that gold nugget, and really all they've got is a little teeny bit of gold dust. They need more. And so they're not going to get progress, and it's frustrating for you because as a practitioner, you're always having to find new clients. And that is a real drain on your energy and your resources. A lot of my clients have said they've struggled with so many of these things like points 1, 2, and 3 for so long that they're just about ready to give up. I shouldn't say clients, my students have said they're just about ready to give up. They're not making ends meet very well. It's a struggle, and they've got this nag in the back of their head that is saying you should just get a real job, right? Now, some of you are here because you find iridology to be really interesting, and you can envision how you're going to use it in your practice. And so you want to learn more about the course and how to move forward from here. So hopefully one of those is you. I would love to know if you would just throw in the chat, just give me the numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, any combination of them, for what your main reasons are for being here tonight, or maybe you've got an entirely different reason for being here. I would love to see that. You can send it to me privately if you would like, but I would love to know that. And welcome, Dan and Mary. Mary and Debbie. We're glad to have you on the webinar with us too. I'd love to know where you're from. If you wouldn't mind putting that in the chat box, that'd be great. This is one of my grads, Karen Cho. You hear a lot about her. She's just lovely. I have so many, well, let me just put it this way. All of my students are lovely. I adore every one of them, and I would do anything I could to help any one of them be massively successful. And okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Marie, for letting me know where you're from. I would love it if you'd use the chat box and send it to me privately rather than the Q&A, because it's too many windows to monitor, but thank you for your comment. I appreciate that. So Karen came to me already certified as a certified natural health practitioner, and she specializes in natural digestive health. So she's working with people who've got really bad GI tracts and working at helping them improve their health. She came to me because she was frustrated. She had had years of training and she had a practice, but she was still struggling to figure out the root cause of her clients' health concerns. And, you know, she would finally think she had it, and then she would go and she would create the program and she would bring it back to her client. And she was spending so much time creating programs and she wasn't getting paid for them, right? Those are the hours. If your clients want to pay for the face-to-face time, they don't want to pay for the time that you're not face-to-face with them often. And so she was a little frustrated that she was donating so much time and it wasn't helping to pay the bills. The sad part is we've got bills, right? We don't want to gouge. We don't want to be unreasonable in the amount that we want to be paid, but we want to be paid for the work we do. So she took the dynamic iridology assessment system program with me. She learned the iridology there and she learned how to integrate it with what she was doing. And she really learned how to follow it through and understand what the eyes were saying, how that meshed with what the client's goals were, and how to use that as the base to ask specific questions, client directed questions, to figure out what is the root cause, where do I need to go from here. And what Karen then said was, and she was only about halfway through the course when she sent me this, she said, I've begun to implement this incredible work in my practice quite successfully. It has truly helped me immensely in making decisions and assessments. I am much more confident. And Susan says she's currently studying tongue and pulse, and she finds iridology to be another valuable tool. Thank you so much, Susan. I appreciate hearing that from you. Let's do a couple of little iris assessments here. How many of you, just give me a yes in the comments. How many of you are at least somewhat familiar with iridology, so that I know how deep I can go as I do these quick little assessments? And if you'll just say yes, if you're familiar, yes, yes. Oh, good. Okay. You want to get chewy here with me? We're going to get chewy. So when we understand iridology, and when we combine it with our clients' health goals, it helps us to actually get that deeper meaning, that deeper understanding, and it helps us to create our nutrition and or supplement programs in under 20 minutes. Now, my appointments typically are an hour long. What do we do for the other 40 minutes? I listen. I listen. And my clients love that because, as they say, I tell them we could do this in a half an hour. And they say, no, you're the only person who listens, so I want a full hour. So that's very cool. These eyes that you're looking at here are the eyes of a 20-year-old female. She's when she first came to see me, she'd been gaining weight and had gained about 20 pounds in the past year, and the doctors had no explanation. That's because the doctors didn't ask enough questions. She's got this tiny little indicator right here, 3 times over, called a gateway arch. Now, the gateway arch tells us that there are strong predispositions to blood sugar imbalances, that these are inherent imbalances. And you wouldn't be able to see this without really good magnification, right? But I saw that, and I asked her about her menstrual cycles. And she said, well, I asked her, they regular? She said, yes. And I said, every 4 weeks? And she said, no, they're usually 4 weeks late. Okay, let's do the math. Are you saying that your cycles are 8 weeks apart? Yep, typically. Okay. Well, when you know the definition of polycystic ovarian syndrome, the very first criterion is fewer than 9 menstrual cycles in a year. When you're having a cycle every 8 weeks, that means you're only having 6. She has weight gain, which is very common with PCOS. She's got the gateway arch, which suggests some problems with her carbohydrates, which is very common with PCOS. Right. So here we are in a matter of the first 20 to 30 minutes of her appointment. I'm asking her, has your doctor ever suggested anything hormonal? And she said, well, my doctor says that I'm actually menopausal. I said, your doctor hasn't used the term polycystic ovarian syndrome? And she said, no. And I said, well, I'm not telling you you've got that, but I'm saying you've got every symptom of it. You know, you are really pointing in that direction. So we need to do some food work with you first. So of course, she's a university student. We got rid of the refined carbs. We got her eating leafy greens. We got her buying some groceries and using the kitchen in her little apartment instead of eating on campus. We got her eating more protein. We got her walking every day. And we didn't even use any supplements. I got an email from her, and then she went away to university. She stopped in to see me on her Christmas break. She went away to university, and then I got an email from her just about 6 weeks later saying that she'd already lost 10 pounds, which is amazing, in 6 weeks without dieting. and that her period had actually, it had already shortened down from 8 weeks to 6 weeks in that first little bit of time. So just knowing what her eyes showed us and where that weakest of weak links is for her, we were totally able to create a program for her on the spot, which is really amazing. Again, when we're working with a client, we always need to know what their health goals are. Now, this is a little 4-year-old she is a 3rd generation client for me. I took care of her grandma when her grandma was having her mommy. And then I've taken care of her mommy. And then I took care of her mommy when she was getting pregnant with this little girl. And so this is a ton of fun to have this family in my business for very close to 40 years, which is just great. Now, this little girl comes from an amazing home, absolutely amazing, loving, intact family. So mom and dad adore each other. Things are great. Financially, they're very stable. The mom loves to cook. And so everything is organic from scratch. Mom also works full time, but she makes time for this. And mom was just wanted to make sure that her little girl was doing well. She wanted to know if there was anything that could become a problem that she should be addressing now to preempt it. And so when we look at this little set of eyes and we see this collarette is hugging tightly towards the inner pupillary border, towards the pupil, that suggests this little girl's an introvert. And it also suggests that she's going to internalize her stress, and she could end up with some gut bowel issues, especially, and might be a little bit prone to some constipation kinds of problems. But the diet is really good, so there's nothing like that showing up now. So that's good. We also see, depending on your computer monitor, there's a teeny tiny tinge of yellow, ever such a faint tinge. And so that says, maybe pay attention to the kidneys. Be careful to balance the diet a little bit to make sure that there's not a lot of stress on kidneys, because if there's a teeny tinge at the age of 4, pigment accumulates, and it's likely that that's going to get more significant as she gets older. We're going to see more of it coming in. Now, again, probably nothing wrong with the kidneys right now. What would you do with a 4-year-old? You would encourage drinking water. You would encourage just keep her hydrated, really take the stress off. If you do emotional work, you're going to encourage them to, if this little girl has any fears, to help her work through those fears and be able to manage her any fear levels. The amount of white in here suggests a little bit of a predisposition towards elevated acid, but I'm not concerned about that with this family because very organic, lots of vegetables, everything from scratch. There's not a lot in that diet that's going to cause an acid problem for her. When we see that she's got a little bit of lymphatic, the tophi popping up in here, that suggests that she might be a little bit prone to some immune challenges based in the lymphatic system. So I just suggested, maybe she may have those problems. She's a 4-year-old. Most 4-year-olds are pretty active, so I'm not overly concerned about it. But I did encourage the mom to make sure that, when the girls, they've got 2 little girls, when the girls are with the nanny, that the nanny makes sure they get to the park to play, and that they play hard, and maybe put this little girl into some gymnastics or some dancing or some swimming classes or things like that, where she's really being physical to keep the lymphatic system moving. Or family could take up hiking, right? Or bike riding, or all kinds of things to work with that. We also see that she's got a scurf rim, this dark band at the outer edge of the eye, which on a physical level says the skin may not want to get rid of acids all the way, right? On an emotional level, it says she has purpose. And as she gets older, she'll know her purpose and she will be driven to fulfill her purpose. And that is just absolutely brilliant. So with this little girl, we didn't actually give any supplements because she's very healthy, and mom is pretty well versed and has her own a little herbal apothecary that I've helped her put together. and she understands how and when to use the supplement. So nothing was required at this point in time. We just, again, suggested keep the diet clean like mom does, get this little girl drinking some more water, just keep her hydrated, and make sure that she's being physically active. And we did suggest doing some dry skin buffing. Now, you're probably familiar with dry skin brushing. The dry skin brushes that we have up here in Canada, I don't know what they're like where you're at, but they are really coarse. They're really like, okay, I'm going to date myself here. You could scrub the wax off the kitchen floor with these babies, right? They are something. I would never use a brush that stiff on a child. Instead, what I would do is I would get an all natural cotton face cloth, rinse it out, let it drip dry so it's just coarse, and I would use that as a dry skin brush for a child, right? And so that's all we recommended for her, really, was to add some dry skin brushing before bath time in the evening. That's it. Pretty easy stuff. Nothing necessarily to worry about in here, which is really excellent. This is our third eye type. So we've seen a hematogenic eye, we've seen a lymphatic eye. These are biliary eyes. Now, these eyes are amazing. This is a client who has been a client of mine for 40 years. She was one of my very first clients, and she still comes in. She's had, unfortunately, she'd been away for a bit, and then for quite a few years, and then she started coming back about a year and a half ago. And I saw her 5 or 6 times, and then she faded off again. And then she had a heart attack in December. Fortunately, she is strong and she knows her nutrition. And her husband was smart enough to load her into the car, because they live about 3 minutes from a hospital. Instead of waiting for an ambulance, he put her in the car and he zoomed her over there. And of course, they took her in immediately. And so she's recovering very, very nicely. When she came back to see me about a year and a half ago, before all of this started, her concern was she had gained some weight and was probably 40 pounds overweight, had had a lot of stress with her extended family, and her cholesterol was elevated. Her triglycerides were elevated. Her A1C was up, her hemoglobin A1C, and her blood pressure was up. Now, that's not a good blood panel to have, because it says that she is heading towards type 2 diabetes with what her numbers were. And all of that together increases the risk of having a cardiac incident, which is exactly where she ended up. Because after that 5 or 6 appointments we did a year and a half ago, things got really, really stressful. Her husband has a disease, has a condition that is terminal, and it's very stressful for her, because his case is it's really a very slow death that he's going through, which is really hard on everybody, right? Because she is the caregiver. And so these photos, again, are from when she started coming in about 18 months ago. Biliary iris, and that means that she has liver predispositions. She's also anxiety tetanic, which means that she has particular ways of managing her stress, but in particular, it means that she burns her B vitamins, vitamin C, calcium, and magnesium very quickly. But I also see indicators in her eyes that she probably is MTHFR, which is important, because when you understand MTHFR, you understand that she doesn't methylate her folic acid properly, or her cyanocobalamin vitamin B12. If you don't metabolize your folic acid properly, that increases your risk of cardiac incidences. All right, you're seeing where this is all going and how it's all adding up. I wouldn't know she was MTHFR without looking at her eyes, but when I look at her eyes, she has the one characteristic that speaks MTHFR. We also see that, and what that means is that, as going back to the contraction first, to the anxiety tetanic, she burns through her B vitamins very quickly. But if she's not methylating them, she doesn't have them to burn, and the non-methylated ones build up in the system and cause all kinds of imbalances. And so it meant that we needed to get the methylates into her in order for it to balance some things out, right? And so that was really important. Also notice that we've got lots of pupil flattening in many ways. And this all teaches us about different imbalances in the body that we correlate to her constitution and to other things that we see. Remember that the liver metabolizes carbohydrates. I mean, it does 500 different jobs, right? We know that. But it metabolizes the carbs, and it uses some of those carbs to make cholesterol and triglycerides. And it is that imbalance where it's not doing that properly that leads to this white haze, which, depending on if you've got some iridology training behind you already, we call it a lipemic diathesis. Some people used to call it an arcocinellus and things like that. So we know that she is her body has the potential to mess up her circulatory system with the triglycerides and the cholesterol. We can also see when we look in the sclera that she currently and very dynamically has some issues building in the circulation in different organs in her body, and that's not going to do any good for her, right? This is coming in, just grab my chart. This is coming in through the throat thyroid bronchial region. We've got this one coming up again into the throat thyroid bronchial, but look at how this blood vessel continues all the way up the side. And that's telling us that there's all kinds of congestion starting to build in here, just like we've got congestion building over here as we go. And so as we look at all of the blood vessels in the sclera, we see that there are also some potentials for issues in there as well. So, with this, a lot of you could probably create a program for her, right? Just knowing that much. But we also need to know what's going on in her diet right now, that it is pushing her liver to make this mess, right? So we always ask, what do you eat? And how do you eat? Do you eat on the run? Are you or are you actually sitting and relaxing when you eat? Are you doing everything in a smoothie form? Are you eating real foods too? How much of it is refined carbs? How much is processed? What is the balance? Now, this is a client who actually, she knows a lot. She was also one of my first herbology students 40 years ago, right? She knows nutrition. She's worked in health food stores, and she's probably one of the most knowledgeable people that I know who's not practicing as a health coach right now. And so as we looked at her eyes, and we looked at that original panel, her blood work, and we looked at her diet, she was cooking the foods that her husband likes, not necessarily the foods that are good for either of them, right? And so we had to have a little heart-to-heart about, your husband is going to die. He might die in a year, he might die in 5 years, but he is going to die. In the process of him dying, you can get very sick if you don't take care of yourself. And so we need to put your oxygen mask on first in order for you to stay well while you are going through this with your husband. She's actually been such a caregiver. Took care of her mom as her mom was dying. She took care of her uncle as he was dying, and she's always taking care of people, but no one's ever taking care of her. So I got to give her a little bit of love and just say, we need to refocus here, because if we don't, you're not going to be any better off than your husband. So let's get started. So we started with eliminating the refined carbohydrates and replacing them with better options. We got her walking for 30 minutes a day. And, just taking out the refined carbs and by replacing with better options, there was lots of leafy greens, lots of low carb veg, and we made sure she was getting good fats and oils and a good amount of protein through the day. And, we got her walking 30 minutes a day, and in 3 months, she lost 20 pounds, which was amazing. And when she went and got her labs done again, they all came back normal. And then, like I said, she fell off the wagon because things were getting a little bit dicey with husband, and they went back to eating the way they had been eating, and she regained most of the weight, and then she had the heart attack. And there are emotional reasons for the heart attack as well. At any rate, because we can see that her liver is the root of this. We've gone back to exactly where we were previously with the low carb diet, with getting the proteins and the healthy fats and lots of low carb veg, getting her recovering from a heart attack. We've got to be very careful about how we get her exercising again. We need the heart to be repairing properly before we create any strenuous things. And so she can walk, and she's getting to where she can walk faster. So she's rebuilding and doing it very safely, which is very exciting. But again, you know, I wouldn't have known how to deal with this. We did supplements as well. I actually put her on a prenatal vitamin because it has the methylated Bs. And it just is the most brilliant vitamin I've ever seen. And so we use that with her as well. And we're able to create the whole dietary program and the supplement program for her on the spot. Now, right now, she is under medical care as well. So she is doing the medications that they recommend for repairing her heart and all that kind of stuff. And gradually, her goal is to come off the medications and to manage completely holistically, which I'm very confident she can do. All right, so that is a little taste of what you can do with Iridology. So now this is the show you really came for, right? And that is to learn about the dynamic Iridology assessment system for holistic health professionals. So as we look at this, we are going to be looking at everything about the course. And I want you to feel free to put comments or questions in the chat box to let me know if there is something about the course that I haven't answered for you that you need. All right, so let's make this be a bit of a dialogue here. Confident Nutritionist, we used to call it Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology. I should update this. The Dynamic Iridology Assessment System is the only 20-week, fully mentored constitutional iridology training program designed specifically for holistic practitioners like you, that is designed to help you incorporate what you already know about herbology and nutrition while mastering constitutional iridology and while building your confidence as a practitioner. The goal here is to not make this be a standalone course. The goal here is to make it be something that actually helps you to draw on everything you already know. Iridology helps me to understand on a better level whether I need to be doing flower essences with someone or aromatherapy, or what kinds of vitamins and supplements I should be using with them in this particular instance, how I should be coaching them to modify their diet step by step by step. Without it, I would be shooting in the dark. You will find that iridology will be much more useful to you if you also have an anatomy and physiology course under your belt, because we're always talking about the relationship between organs, how this organ affects that organ, how if this organ is out of balance, it's going to throw that one out of balance, how we need to use this food to create a balance here, but the spillover effect is going to be over here. And so we're always connecting dots, and it really helps if you've got a good A&P course under your belt. And if you don't have an A&P course that under your belt from anywhere else, just let me know, because I can connect you with one that I think is amazing. So what is this course? It is a step-by-step course that teaches constitutional iridology in a logical and sequential manner. Some iridology teachers teach by doing analyses, just like what I did, where they throw slides up, they'll point out everything they see. And I find that that doesn't work for most of my students. That's not their preferred style of learning. We do this using 20 live 2-hour-long webinars. And this contains all of the curriculum that you need to take to prepare for the IPA certification exam. So if you've been around the IPA webpage at all, that's the International Iridology Practitioners Association, they talk about level 1 and level 2 iridology. And many teachers teach it as level 1 and level 2. I don't. I have rolled level 1 and level 2 into one long program, because level 1 is useless without level 2. And I don't want to give my students the option of cutting out halfway through. So we've got the 20 live 2-hour long webinars. So that's one per week, one per week. What you'll learn in this course is quite amazing and a lot of information. And so we start out in lesson 1. It's the introduction, the background, where did iridology come from? And we do a lot with eye anatomy. We have to understand the structure of the eye in order to know how to work with it, right? We also have to understand the history, because if you don't know the history, then you're not going to know why there's so much confusion out there. Iridology has evolved. And in that evolution, various people along the way have gotten stuck in time. And they are teaching that one set of information, even though we have newer information that has been proven, is reliable, has been tested. And so along the way, people have gotten stuck and they are still teaching whatever outdated stuff they've got because they haven't kept up on the research. And we just had our IPA symposium Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It was virtual. It was really an amazing experience to do it virtually this year. And the research that is ongoing that some of these people are doing that they reported is just mind-boggling. Like I'm going to be watching those webinars a few times to get the depth of what they were teaching. Pretty amazing. We also go over inherent health potentials and acquired health concerns. Lessons 2 through 4, we look at the constitutions, and we've just seen the 3 basic constitutions: hematogenic, biliary, and lymphatic. We look at the constitutional subtypes based on the color of the eye and based on the structure of the eye, because each of those gives us even more information. So we look at the eye, and we know instantly by looking at this eye, again, that this person is more prone to some liver and pancreas stuff, that they burn through their B vitamins, and that their liver is probably has not been processing their carbs very well for quite a while. Again, probably an MTHFR in here. And when I know that and put that with what the client's health goals are and what the client's symptoms are and their health history, it gives me clarity. And I know exactly where I want to go. And the first thing I'm going to tell this person to do is stop drinking coffee because it's not helping them. Lesson 5, we learn about pigments, because all of these extra colors that we see in the eye give us more information about how this person is put together, about their inherent potential, about where the strengths and weaknesses are, about how the organs are going to work together. And so we need to understand pigment. We need to understand pigment is acquired. It doesn't go away. And I've got documented cases where we've got photos 20 years apart, and you can see that the pigment has developed over time. Lesson 6 through 8, we talk about fiber variations. What does the fiber structure of this eye mean to this person? What does the fiber structure here tell us about this person? What does this fiber structure mean? What does the hematogenic, where we see very little fiber shining through, what does that mean? And how do we work with it? We look at the different shapes. You might know these by the term lesion. We call them lacunae, or lacuna is a singular, and they give us even more information. And it's not that we have to pick every one of these. We're not going to nitpick this eyeball to death. We don't need to. We can go with the general feel and land on things that are specific to what the client needs to know now. They don't need to know everything that's in their eye. That's the beauty of constitutional when you're using it effectively. The eyes teach us so much about the person's nervous system, about how whether they're an introvert or an extrovert, whether they respond aggressively to situations or whether they tend to be more calm. Do they like to be in control of things? Are they more laissez-faire? We also look at the pupil shape, because the pupil shape teaches us about current dynamic risks. The pupil correlates very strongly to spinal alignment, and it correlates also to things that could be brewing that could be very, very important. Lessons 10 through 13, we talk about the nutritive zone. That's everything from the inner edge at the pupil right up to the collarette. This takes in the stomach and the small and large intestines. There's so much information in that little space. Have you ever worked with a client how many of you are practitioners, by the way? Give me a 1 if you're actually a practitioner and you work with clients right now. If you'd put that in the comments, that would be great. Okay, give me a 1 just so that I know where we're going. Debbie, yes, thank you. Excellent. Excellent. So we've got maybe 1 of you sees clients right now. All right. So have you ever worked with a client, Debbie? I'm going to put you on the spot here, where you put together a program. They either responded really well for a few days and then the program quit working, or you just didn't get the results you thought you should have from that program. Have you ever had that experience? Yes. Yeah. And Sean's a massage therapist. Ooh, excellent. Thank you, Sean. I appreciate knowing that. When we understand the nutritive zone, when we understand details about the stomach and the intestinal tract, this helps us to understand on a deeper level why some programs work and some don't. And that means that it helps us to do a better job of crafting the right program from the get-go. Right? So very, very interesting. And Sean, for you especially, Pupil Shape is huge when it comes to the massage work. But there's the fiber structures also tell us whether this person regenerates their collagen properly and their connective tissues really well, whether they are more prone to strains and breaks and sprains and things like that. So there's some really good information in here for you as well. Lesson 14 looks at the humeral zone, which is just outside the collarette, and into the ciliary zone, which is everything else out here. And that teaches us how the body transports the nutrients, how the different organs use the nutrients, teaches us about how the muscles and the bones and the organs actually use things. We have lesson 15, which is all about these wrinkles that are coming around the eye like this, because these teach us, and actually we spend 3 entire lessons, 3? 3, no, 1, 3, 1, 3. 3 lessons. Sorry about that. That was a little synaptic gap thing in my brain. We spent a few lessons on contraction furrows because they teach us so much about the nervous system. I should have taken my ginkgo, right? Lesson 16 is all about syndromes and zone 7. And syndromes are really unique. There's only a few of them, but when you see them in an eye, they teach you volumes instantly. And you instantly know where that client's weak links are without even knowing their constitution. Lesson 17, we talk about how eyes change. They do change, but not in the way so many people on social media say. So in this lesson, in lesson 17, we're going to put all of that misinformation to rest. And then we are going to spend 2 lessons learning sclerology, looking at the white of the eye to understand what the blood vessels mean. What does it mean when we've got pigment or something discolored that's in the sclera itself? What kinds of things can we see in the sclera? You know, even by the time you're just halfway through the course, you're going to find that you are a much stronger practitioner in whatever you do, because it's just going to all fall into place and make sense. Lesson 20 is a wrap-up lesson where we just make sure that we've got all of our ducks in a row. So consider for a moment what it would cost if you had to travel somewhere to take a 40-hour class. Even if it was offered as, say, 6 or 7 hour days. The time off work, your accommodation there, your meals there, lost wages for a week, I don't know, childcare. What other expenses might you have? I mean, it can really get expensive to be traveling to take classes and workshops. It's fun, but it can get expensive. Of course, right now, nobody's traveling anyways. I've worked out the math. I'm in Canada, and most of these big courses are in the US. And so I've got exchange on the dollar to wrestle with and all kinds of things. And you would not believe how expensive it is to fly from Canada to anywhere in the US. It is really expensive. And so what we found is that, when you look online, you'll find that tuition for an iridology course in the US runs anywhere from $1,200 to $2,200 US, right? These are courses taught by IPA certified instructors, so they should be really good. But again, by the time we add all of the other expenses onto that, you're looking at well over $4,000 to take the course. And that's assuming that you don't earn very much, that, we're not cutting into your income terribly lots, like $100 a day. But the other problem I found with doing those kinds of courses is, I don't know how your brain works, but I know how mine does. By about a day and a half, my brain is starting to go mushy. And by the end of 2 days, I've stopped taking notes, and I'm just hoping there's a recording that I can buy so I can go home and study it at my own speed. I found that my students also do best with a 2-hour class where we begin the class with, are there any questions from anything we've covered so far in the course? Then we spend about anywhere from 35 to 60 minutes covering new material. And then we spend anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes, depending on how it's broken down, right? Going over and practicing everything we've learned, including the new stuff, so that we start the mentoring right in the classes to make sure it is absolutely landing well. So a 40-hour class taught by live webinars is worth $23.95 Canadian. How many of you are in Canada? I know Susan is in Pennsylvania. If you just let me know where you're at. I think Marie said she was in Canada as well. Is everybody else in the US? Because we need to teach you about Kansas. Okay, Sean, we're going to teach you about exchange on the dollar in a minute, because I find a lot of Americans don't understand exchange into different currencies. So we'll talk about that in a minute, just to make sure everyone is feeling really confident here. So, and West Virginia, right on. Okay, we'll make sure we touch on currency exchange for you. So as we look at this, that's what the course itself is worth, $23.95 Canadian, which is going to come out somewhere around $1,900 US, but that's not the course itself. Just hang on with me here for a minute. This is Sharon Bimrose. She's a naturopath from Australia. She already knew iridology. She'd taken it as part of her naturopathy course, but she took mine because she wasn't feeling confident. They had taught her markings. They did not teach her how to integrate it into her practice. So she said, however, Judith's course, Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology, surpassed my previous training in structure, content, delivery, documentation, and support. Iridology has certainly reduced the time required for prioritizing a treatment plan. Love it. Love it. I asked I have a Facebook group for my students and my alumni, and Karen is, of course, we met Karen earlier. I asked her, how has learning constitutional iridology helped you in your business? And she said, it's helped me to understand the relationships between the different organs and organ systems more in depth. Iridology also gives me an advantage of seeing the potential for different genetic traits and qualities that may be underlying. By observing the constitution, for example, you can extrapolate how the person's body will likely respond to applications of healing methods. Therefore, it has helped me to expand my knowledge and increased efficiency at providing more precise recommendation for health-oriented options. Love it. So when we do a course, when we do the class, it's very much like what we're doing right now, except that I ask my students to have their cameras turned on and their microphones turned on. Now, why do I do that? Because we unmute our mics, we have the back and forth verbally, so your questions get answered in real time, but I also want to be seeing faces, not just because I love my students so much, but because I can see expressions on their faces that will tell me, okay, that didn't land right. I need to explain that in a different way. Or I can then ask, are you okay with that? Did that make sense? Sometimes, my words get tangled and it's like, did I just say what I think I said? Did it make sense to you? Do I need to go over that again? Right. And so by watching faces, we can make sure we do the very best job possible. Now, we said it's 20 live 2-hour-long webinars, but what if you can't make a class? What if you're ill? Maybe you've got another commitment. Maybe you've got a vacation. That would be a treat, wouldn't it? Every class session is recorded and stored on your student site so that you can go back in and review it whenever you want, right? So if you miss a class, make it up. If you're on vacation and you can pick up the class, look at the recording the next day, that is great. But it gives you the option then of some flexibility, right? Maybe you attended class, but you're thinking, that's worth a re-listen, and you want to listen to it one more time or 2 more times. We've also gone through and taken every topic and recorded every topic individually, so that maybe that whole class worked really well, but there's one little piece of it that you're going, it's not sitting straight, and I didn't ask about it in class. You can go back to the recordings, and every recording has several examples so that you can actually go through that and review. So that's like getting the course, having access to it a 3rd time over. Digital downloadable textbook and digital iris map. Every teacher that I know of wants you to buy a hard copy book, and there's nothing wrong with hard copy books, but they're very expensive, right? Because they're big, they're textbooks, they're usually printed very high quality, but the drawback is that there is research, and as IPA keeps up with the research and changes the curriculum, that hard copy book is going to be out of date in a year or 2. There's already been information added in the last 2 years that, because my textbook is digital, I updated it, and my students and my grads all got the updated version, right? So a downloadable textbook, 200 pages long. This is not a pamphlet, it is a book. And a digital iris map. Again, teachers make you buy an iris map. Mine is digital, you can download it. And the beautiful thing about these is that all of our teaching materials, when you're IPA certified instructor, has to be approved by the education board. And they gave my stuff flying colors. So that's gold stars. It was great. Cheat sheets. How many of you are familiar with Cole's Notes or Cliff's Notes? You know, where if you didn't want to read Shakespeare, you could just buy this little booklet and it gave you all the important stuff. Well, there's so much content. Like I said, a 200-page textbook. We've distilled the content down into 45 pages of cheat sheets so that you have a quick reference guide to use when you are with your clients. Now, I don't know of any other teacher who has this, because I created it, and it's worth $175 if I was to sell it, which I'm not selling it. All right, so what else do we have? What about support? Iridology is very complex. There is a lot to know and a lot to learn. And so we have the private Facebook group for my students and my alumni, where you can post cases you're working on, you can ask questions, and everybody there has been where you're at. So when you ask a question and you're thinking, oh, this is a dumb question, someone else is going, oh my goodness, I asked that very same question when I was taking this course. This is amazing. I have the answer for you now. And I've got marvelous grads who are happy to jump in and help me with answering questions if I don't get to it quickly enough. We also have office hours webinars. So twice a month, any student who has a question or a case that they would like help with comes to the office hours, and it's done as a webinar, and it's open to all of the students and grads. And we discuss the questions and the cases that the students have. Sometimes I'll prepare extra material on marketing. If some of my students are going, yeah, I'm struggling with the marketing thing. How are you marketing during COVID? How do you do this? How do you do that? How do you get people to come see you? How do you get people to want to pay you? How much do you charge? Things like that. Then I'll create some extra material so that I can answer their questions in an office hours session. Why is this actually worth a combined total of $20,000? Well, I know you've heard me clearly when I said that my Facebook group is for students and alumni. My office hours is for students and alumni. This is support that will only end when I quit teaching. I'm not planning on teaching soon. I love it too much. So this is years and years and years of support. Why do I do that? Do it for 2 reasons. Number one, because my iridology teacher, who no longer teaches iridology, my constitutional teacher, does not teach anymore. But every now and then, if I have a question, You'd think that after 30 years of being a constitutional iridologist, I would know it all. But I come up with questions. I send it off to Bill. Bill answers it for me, and I love that he does. And the second one is I've paid some serious cash for classes and for courses and for mentorship programs where it was like $5,000 for a 3-month mentorship. At the end of 3 months, you're out of here. If you want their help again, you pay another $5,000 for another 3 months. And I guess that kind of just gets under my skin a little bit. And so the mentorship goes on. You also get recordings of the office hours stored on a student site. So they're stored for 18 months. So if you presented a case and it was kind of complex and you need to go back and re-listen to what we said, not a problem. Just go back into the office hours webinar, find it in there. They're all filed by the date, so you can find it quite easily. And there you've got it. Mike Knapp is another naturopath from Arizona. He said, I asked him, what was it that drew you to the class? He said, the interactive online platform with an experienced teacher and practitioner. You said the fundamentals of iridology could be learned in this format, and that's what was delivered, plus a lot more on how to integrate it directly into current practice. I'm very happy with the training, so thank you. And he's working to integrate everything he's learned into his practice. It sometimes takes a while to change that ship direction and get things going around. Now, I've mentioned earlier that this program is to prepare people for certification with IPA if they so choose. Now, some of my students don't want to certify. I'm perfectly fine with that. Many of them do. And so IPA has 3 levels of exam. Exam 1, I provide you with 10 case studies. You do a write-up in a way that you will never do it when we're finished this, because it's not the way you're going to practice. You send them back to me, I grade them. You and I meet for a one-on-one session to go through and see if there's any weak links, if there's what is strong. Are you ready to move on to exam 2? Or do we think you need a little more practice here? When you're ready to move on to exam 2, IPA gives me a case study. I give it to you. You do it. Send it back to me. I grade it. We meet one-on-one, go over it again, make sure you are rock solid. And then if you want to certify, I let IPA know that you've done the coursework and you've done these exams. You purchase your student membership with IPA, and then you can you can pay the exam fee and do the digital exam with them. And again, if you choose to not certify, that's perfectly fine. It's entirely up to you, and I hold no judgment either way. You also, I just should put in here, you also need to have proof of a college level anatomy and physiology course with a grade of over 80% in order to complete your certification requirements with IPA. All right, so total value of this baby with all of everything that you see here is over $31,000. That is not what I charge for the program. That's what it's worth, but that's not what I charge. Instead, I really do charge $23.95. $23.95 is a very fair price, especially considering that you have such long-term support with this program. So we've got some options here as well. If you want to pay it in one shot, $23.95. If you would like 5 payments of $5.49 Canadian, that is great too. Now I've got a couple of little perks and bonuses here because you people are in a very elite and special group. You are the people who are getting the early registration option. Right. This only went out to I think it was 96 people out of my email list of 2,000 that were invited to this webinar. And that includes also the people in my dynamic iridology assessment group, which I think most of you are in that group as well. So this didn't go out to very many people because I only have room for 10 students in the class. I really insist on having time to do personal time and for my students to feel comfortable asking questions. How does this all convert? $23.95 Canadian is about 1900 US. It's about 1400 British pounds sterling, and it's about 2500 Australian dollars. Those are the most common places that I get students from. If you opt for the 5 payments of $549, it's one a month. And once you make the first payment, the system is set up automatically to just do the payments one a month, right? So 435 US or 325 British pounds sterling or 570 Australian dollars. Now, some of you might be thinking, yeah, I just want to do the course on my own. I just want the recorded stuff. And that's fine. If you really want to do it by yourself with no mentoring, no Facebook group, no support, and not preparing you for certification, because it won't. It's the same content, but you won't have the option of doing IPA exam 1 and exam 2. Let me know. I do have a home study version. You can do it your own speed, and you can work it through. And it's priced accordingly because you're not getting my one-on-one attention. Now, you're here though. You're here. And because the course actually doesn't start until mid-April, till April 21st, you qualify for the early bird super special payment plan. That's 7 payments of $395 Canadian, and you can see how that's dropping those exchange rates down. Sean, good question. How many days a week do we meet? Once a week for 2 hours. Right now, the next live course that starts on the 21st is Wednesday evenings, 5 till 7 p.m. Mountain Time. It'll be Mountain Daylight Time by then. So again, depending on where you're at in your time zone, you'll need to calculate that out. What is included in this early enrollment bonus beyond being able to spread your tuition out over 7 months instead of 5 months or one payment? If you've shown up for this, you're probably pretty excited to get going, and you're thinking, I don't want to wait till the middle of April. Just get me in, right? So until the live course starts, I will give you full access to the self-study version of the course until your live course starts, and then we'll move you into access to the live study, to the live program. You'll get full access to the office hours starting right away. You'll get full access to the student and alumni Facebook group right away. And of course, you get the 7-pay payment plan. But I'm only leaving this open until March 5th. After that, we lose the 7 payment option and we lose all of these early access bonuses. So the early enrollment option is available at iridology.education/early-enrollment. Here is your class date, start date, and times. And I've converted it. I went into a time zone converter. So this gives you what time it is in most of the time zones. This is Michelle Davies. She came to me having Dr. David Pesick's level 1, 2, and 3 in iridology, as Darko Purse's iridology and professional practice certificates. But she said that what she learned most, because she knew the markings and she had a good anatomy background, most importantly, I learned how to put it all together to make a proper assessment, something that nobody else had worked with her on. And that's a part of the course. What good is it to know what the marking is if you don't know what to do about it or to do with it, right? So really important that we work on all of that. This is Stephanie. She has a master's degree in education. That was a little intimidating for me, except that she's a sweet sweetheart, right? And so if you're a nice person, you can register for my class because you'll fit in perfectly. She said, I have several books on iridology and I tried to teach myself and spent hours online on YouTube watching various portions of classes and presentations. They were so conflicting and confusing and overwhelming. I told my husband, this is beyond me. I'm not getting this at all. So again, in the Facebook group, I asked, why did you take my course? Why did you choose mine? And she said, I'd seen enough of instructors online to know you were the best teacher, the way you organize info, check for understanding, and coach students. Other instructors know their stuff, but you have the heart of a teacher. I wanted to graduate with understanding, not just knowledge. Love that, because I agree. Knowledge is not worth anything if you don't understand it. So again, the course begins on April 21st. And if you want to take advantage of spreading the payments out over 7 payments, use this early enrollment link. And on one of my sets of notes here, I've actually got that where I can paste it in for you, and I will do that in just a moment. So I just want you to know that I'm no different than you. I started my business from scratch, did it the way I was taught. I made a lot of mistakes along the way, and I have developed and tested this proven plan, and I've used it for 3 decades now for assessing my clients' needs and for creating programs that my clients can be successful with. One of the big challenges I had was I was taught things early on, but I was not mentored. Once the lessons were over, the mentoring ended, and it was very difficult. So part of my goal with this program is to offer practitioners support as they work on building their businesses. So this link again, iridology.education early-enrollment will get you in for any payment option you want: 1 pay, 5 pay, 7 pay. And you know, if you're getting in before March 5th, and I would suggest get in sooner than that, you also get all of the early access. So if you feel like you want extra time to be reviewing things even before the course begins, you'll get that with the early registration option. So as we look at the reasons why you might have come tonight, is it that you don't feel as confident as you want to, or that you give too much time away? Is it that your clients don't seem to stick? They come in once or twice and then they're gone. Maybe you've been at it long enough that you're feeling discouraged and you're thinking, I should just get a real job. Or maybe you just think iridology is fascinating and you want to integrate it. Any of those reasons, any combination of those reasons, and any other reasons you've got are totally valid. Those are the most common ones that I see. Again, early registration ends on March the 5th at 6 p.m. So at 6:01 p.m. on March 5th, you lose the option for the 7 pay, and we go down to the 5 pay. Now, you might have questions still, and feel free to type any questions in, and you can type it in just to me if you want. That would be fine. But if you think, I've got some big questions and I really want to ask them personally, this dynamic iridology / insight call, I know that's a handful. You can book a call. There's only a few call spaces left because these are wedged in around my clients and my teaching. But you can book a call and we can talk about it, right? And make sure that we've got your questions answered. Let's answer some other questions right now, because these are things that often come up. And seeing, okay. I live in a time zone that puts this class at midnight where I live. Can I still sign up for the course and be successful? You know, I actually have a student right now. She's finished her coursework. She's working on her certification levels right now. She lives in Slovenia. So if you join the group, you'll get to know her. She's my only student from Slovenia. She signed up for the full-on course because she wanted to ask questions whenever she had them. But the course for her hits at like midnight. It literally hits at midnight. I think there's a 7-hour time zone difference. But because everything is recorded, she could still do the class. And because she opted in for the full program, she's getting any questions answered that she has. In fact, she's presenting a case at our 12 noon office hours tomorrow. All right. So very exciting that you can be successful even if you live in a time zone where it's not really convenient. How long will it take me to go through the entire course? Well, the coursework itself is 20 weeks long. Beyond that, I give my students 10 months past their finish date, past that last class, to complete their certification requirements if they're choosing to certify. So why would I do that? My experience has been that if students say, oh, I'll get to it, no big deal, I'll get around to it, they don't. But if they know they've only got the actual exam mentorship for that 10 months, where I will work with them on IPA exam 1 and 2 to get them ready for exam 3, I find they actually pull through. And so that's really important. The course itself, 20 weeks. And after that, you've got 10 months to finish your certification. And after that, if you want certified, then we have to have a little conversation to figure out how that's going to work for you. How much time do I need to set aside to complete the program? I always suggest 2 hours for the class, obviously, and another 2 to 3 hours each week minimum to review what you've learned, to prepare for the next lesson, to be looking at eye photos, to be looking at, in people's eyes when you can get close enough to do that. Really important to start practicing like right after lesson 2, because lesson 2 is when we start looking at eyeballs. And you need to be practicing. The students who read the next lesson within 24 hours of us doing that lesson are the ones who do the best. Students who spend time reviewing and practicing do the best. And I want my students to be the best iridologists. In fact, I tell my students that my goal for each of them is that they will be a better iridologist than I am. Right? And you can't do that without practice. I'm going to be out of town next month. Will I fall too far behind? No, because things are recorded. Maybe you can still catch the webinar from wherever you're at if the time zone works out. If it doesn't, just go back and make sure you get to the recording before the next class so that you're not missing an integral piece of information. How do I know if this course is right for me? Well, if you're a nutritionist, a herbalist, a naturopath, a holistic practitioner of any kind, and if you're looking for a proven way to assess your client's needs quickly and easily, if you really want to eliminate any unpaid homework time, any time you're donating to create programs outside of your paid hours, or if you simply want to learn the most scientifically up-to-date iridology there is and how to use it in your practice, then this course is for you. When will I know enough to start using what I learn? By the end of lesson 2, right? You got to start practicing right away, because every week we introduce new concepts. And if you don't have a grasp of the previous concepts, the new stuff is going to be harder and harder and harder to keep up with. What else do I need to buy for this course? Well, this is super simple. You'll see online that there's a lot of people selling iridology cameras. And I got to tell you, I got my camera. I got 3 different lighting setups, a couple of different lens setups because I use them for different types of clients. That is not where you start. You start with, a lighted magnifying glass. This one has interchangeable lenses. So you want one that has several different powers, maybe something like a 2 of 5 and an 8, or a 2 of 5 and a 10 power, and a pen light. Just your basic run-of-the-mill little pen light, right? Right? That's all you need. $50, $60 at most, right? That's all you need. In fact, I tell my students, if I catch you buying an expensive camera setup before the end of the class, I know where you live. It's not a good idea. Okay, wait until you finish the course and then decide whether buying a camera is a good idea or not. And take your time to save up your money. Don't go into debt for the camera. What if I don't like the course? Can I get a refund? The answer is no. I do not give refunds. Why do I not give refunds? I don't give refunds because I'm not twisting your arm into taking the course. You've got time to think about it. You've been hanging out with me probably on Facebook, so you know whether you like what I'm doing or not, right? We've had a lot of interactions in various ways. And so I expect that you've gone into this decision with as much thought as it needs to make the right decision for you. That's why I do so many free trainings in the Facebook group and in other places, is so that you can decide, do I teach in a way that works for you? Is this something that you think you're going to be able to use? So I don't offer refunds because this isn't the first time we've met. And you've had time to be thinking about this, and you still do. You've got till March 5th if you want to get on the good deals, right? Right on. So there we go. Iridology.education/early enrollment. And dang, yeah, I thought I pasted those into my notes over here, and apparently I didn't. So just let's see if I can do this for you without putting a typo in here, because remember, I'm an iridologist, not a, there we go, not a secretary. There we go. And we're going to shoot this out to everybody. So there's the link for the early enrollment. And you've had the one for the call. So while we're looking at this slide, what questions do you have that I haven't answered? What questions can I answer that will help you to make a decision? And I don't mean that as to make you decide to take the class. I mean to make a decision that is the right decision for you. Any questions out there? All right. What if you have not had so Debbie, are you asking, what if you've not had an A&P class? Debbie, if you'll clarify. Sean, no. The beauty of the payment plan is that you start making payments now and the course is paid for by the time you finish it. Right? So if you enrolled right away, you would have, what are we at, the 22nd, you'd have the February payment, or the 23rd, February and March payments down, and the last 5 payments would be made during the course of our 20 weeks because it's one a month. And so no, you do not have to be paid in full before you start. And perfect, excellent. And Debbie's saying, what if you have not had an anatomy class? It's preferable to have the anatomy class because I assume that you know certain things about anatomy and physiology. And so knowing that you actually have time, if you have the finances, to probably get an anatomy class under your belt, or mostly under your belt, before this course starts. So Debbie, if you are actually working with clients at this point in time, I would strongly recommend that an anatomy class is a sound idea for you. It will help you with whatever other techniques you're using, whatever other modalities you're using. It'll help you to be an even stronger practitioner there. So I can certainly send you a link to the anatomy class that I recommend. It is offered by a Canadian nutrition school, which means you're in the States, I believe. You've got the benefit of the exchange on the dollar, which makes it more affordable for you. And so, okay, Debbie, I will make a note to send you, just let me seriously make a note to send you that. And seriously, because it is offered online, it's a self-study online version, because that's the least expensive way to go. You can move through it as quickly as you want. And you could comfortably, I think, if you could spend, 2 or 3 hours a day with it, you could probably have it done before the iridology course started. Susan says, will this class be offered anytime in the future? Yeah, it will be offered again in the future. I never plan my next start dates until the one that I'm promoting is up and running. I also have the challenge that I don't plan my start dates way far in advance. My father passed away this past year, not from COVID, and it's left my mother alone, and she lives an hour and a half away, and she is very elderly and not doing great. And so my next start date will depend very much on how my mom is doing and whether we've been able to move her closer to us or not, and things like that. So it will be offered again. I just don't know when. Some of it depends on my mom, right? Because she is, as much as I love teaching, my mom is one of my first priorities. The A&P is also needed for national certification. Absolutely, Sean, it certainly is. Now, Sean, in your massage training, if anatomy and physiology was a separate course, and if you can get a transcript that shows anatomy and physiology and a grade in percentages, where your grade is over 80%, then you've got that done, right? So yeah, your A and P, as long as you've got the right grade, anything over 80, and if it shows as a separate course, then we just need, IPA will simply need a copy of that transcript, like a scan of that transcript when you when you're in the certification process. All right, so you've probably got that done. You are welcome, Susan. It was so good to see you again today. Fabulous. Any other questions here that I can answer for you? You've asked really good questions. And what you will learn when you're in the class is I love questions. Questions tell me that my students were listening. Sometimes they catch me making mistakes, which is brilliant. I love it when they do. And I truly, truly love questions because it means if I didn't explain it fully the first time, I get another chance. And second chances are almost always good, right? Sean says, and not sleeping, LOL. Yeah, funny, right? Yeah. Okay. So is that everything then? It's been fun having you with me. Thank you for that. I appreciate you spending this time with me tonight. And if anybody else needs the anatomy link, let me know and I will send it to you. And otherwise, I'm hoping to see you in this next class. Have a good evening and we will talk to you soon. Bye for now.